Council of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, to be held Monday, January 6, 2020, at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers at 301 South 5th Street, will now come to order. We will have please rise for the invocation by the Reverend Greg Gilberto, Northpoint Nazarene Church, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Richard Deason, Amvets Post 29.
Good evening, everybody. Always an honor to stand before you guys, and Ron, you would know how this works. You pray before you pray, get ready to pray, prepare to pray. I see your faces, and I know that this is not an easy time for the council, but you guys are in position to make some decisions, and my job is to pray that you have a fiery hedge of protection around you as you make those decisions. I also pray that Barb gets a house so she doesn't have to live in the funeral home anymore. Little side note, sorry. But I was reading in 1 Timothy about this, about the authority that you all sit under. Of course, the lordship of Christ is it. I mean, if without the blessing of God, we're all in trouble. Can I get an amen? Amen? So I'm going to pray in that vein, so let's just bow our heads so we can do that. Father, the urgency to pray is right now. As we intercede for these wonderful people and the families they represent, I pray a fiery hedge of protection around their families, their spouses, their friends, their children. Lord, every part that they are introduced to them, that, Lord, that you would just put a force field around them. Lord, that the decisions that they made before us today would be for the good of Poplar Bluff. Scripture says they sit in the seats of authority, and we can live here in Poplar Bluff. This is still the heartland. Help us to realize that we want your heart here. May the blessing of God flow through this council. Lord, I pray that we would live peaceful and quiet lives marked by godliness and dignity in this meeting. We know that this pleases God, and we know in Jesus' name there's power in the name of Jesus. And we pray this in that mighty and matchless name, and all God's people said, Amen. Amen.
Thank you. Mr. Deason.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank both of you, gentlemen. Roll call, please, Clerk Young.
Councilwoman Parson. Here. Councilman DeGaris.
Here.
Councilwoman Horton.
Here.
Councilman Cornman.
Here.
Councilman Black.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk Young. Item 5, disclosure of interest. Any member of the City Council may disclose any possible conflict of interest dealing with either any item on the printed agenda or with any matter discussed at a previous meeting.
Mayor, I will need to recuse myself from workshop item B.
So noted. Thank you. Item 6, citizens' input. Each person in the audience may take this opportunity to address the City Council on any matter which is not on the printed agenda. And we have Mr. Spencer Jones.
Thank you again. Happy New Year. Spencer Jones, 903 North Garfield. This is our second full year of on the journey that we started on, and there was two words that we, like to think that we agreed to when we started on this journey. One was intentionality. The other was accountability. Because without intentionality and without accountability, you don't get things done. That's how you get things done. Doesn't matter whether you're in a government, a church, a school, or community. With those two items, you get things done on both parts. I was in Los Angeles, California 2 weeks ago, and as I was there driving around, it occurred to me that I was a product of intentionality. Born and raised on a farm out in southern Missouri, went to Poplar Bluff High School, went to college in Springfield, Missouri. And while I was in Springfield, Missouri, two white church leaders, I was sitting on the outside the college there, and two white church leaders, I was the first Afro-American to go to school there, and probably one of the only two other, approached me and said, "We want you in Illinois." I had never dreamed, in fact, I never dreamed of living in being any part of Chicago. I felt towards Chicago like many of you felt like a place you don't want to be a part of, don't want to be associated with. But because those gentlemen was intentionally, they recruited me to Illinois. I spent 38 years pastoring a church in Illinois. All because two guys showed intentionality. It shows the power of intentionality. And this is what I'm praying that, that we will really commit ourselves to being intentional, holding one another accountable. Since I was here last, I talked to, I don't know his last name. All I know is David, who's head of the science department in the state of Missouri. He has an office in Saxton, Missouri, about the possibility of naming Highway 60 and from the courthouse down to CVS down there. And he told me that he would get in touch with Mr. Mark here. I tried to get in touch with him just prior to Christmas because of the Christmas thing. I was not able to get in touch with him, but I will call him tomorrow. And then at the end of the meeting, I will talk to Mr. Mark to make sure that he followed through because, again, we all need to be accountable. I had a meeting the day after the city council here with the chief of police. I was really blessed by him. He encouraged me because he and I talked along these lines. And he had really picked up the ball and showed some intentionality. That's what we want and need. In fact, that's what we must have, is intentionality. That he had put out some, I'm going to use the word pluggers, but you know what I'm talking about, in various various cities and counties ordered on regarding a policeman and that kind of thing. So I can't tell you how that really, really blessed me. So that's basically what I've been doing, and I plan now we into the new year to do more. So I don't know whether you guys have any report or not, but we're open to that.
I actually did talk to Mr. Wyman at MoDOT. If the council would like me to review what I discussed with him about changing the name of a highway. Basically, he said there's three options to changing the name. One, the city could actually vote to change the name, but officially on the state records, and it would still officially be designated as Business Highway 60. If the council chose to rename the street, they'd be responsible for changing all the signage at each of the intersections. Of course, I would, if the council would like to look at that, I think you need to at least talk to all the business community through that thoroughfare, because there are a lot of businesses on there that would have to change letterhead and things like that. Option two, and this would require special legislation from the Missouri House, is to designate that section of a road as a memorial boulevard, such as what we did on PP Highway with Billy Canal Boulevard. If that was done by the legislature, there would be a sign erected at each end of the thoroughfare, and the city would be responsible for purchasing those signs. Normally, the memorial highways are set aside for military personnel, such as Billie Jean Canal. But Mr. Wyman thought probably the legislature would be inclined to do that for Martin Luther King. The other option was adopt a highway, and I think most people have seen that across the state. When you drive down a highway, you'll see adopt a highway by a certain individual. They also have adopt a highway in memory of, and this would say adopt a highway in memory of Martin Luther King Jr., and that requires somebody clean that section of the highway up 4 times a year, and the state would actually go in and erect those signs. So basically, that's the 3 options, but whatever's done, it still officially is designated as Business Highway 60, so.
Thank you, sir. That's what we call encouraging. That's what we call intentionality. That's what we call working together. And when we do that, then that creates a great spirit that says that you all care. Because when we left here last time, that was some bad feelings, the fact that you guys didn't care. But what you've done here speaks volume. I can't tell you what to do, but option 2 might be the best route to go. You guys look at it when you talk about it as we go on, because less people are involved in it. Because human nature, by nature, none of us like to change. You and I both know change is good for us. You and I both know at the beginning of the year, all of us say, I'm gonna do this, run 5 miles, 6 miles, and we don't do any of it. And that is unfortunate. But why? Because change is hard to accomplish. I'll say this, and I have a seat. I was back in end of last year. I was up here doing some exercise, and I walked 2 miles, and I thought I had really done something. And I sat down. I was resting. An elderly white lady walked by. She said, "Young man, tell me how many have you done?" And I said, "I've done 2 miles." She said, "Oh, that's nothing." She said, "I'm 77 years old, and I've just done 4 miles." From that day on, that lady inspired me. I said, "Boy, by the end of the year, I will do 5 miles." On the last day of this year, I did 5 miles. In the next year, I'll do 6 miles. That's intentionality. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other input from the audience? Seeing none. Item 8A, workshop items for discussion. The City Council will discuss the City of Poplar Bluff authorizing and directing the submission of a ballot proposition to the qualified voters of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, to consider imposing a local use tax at the same rate as the local sales tax of the City of Poplar Bluff for purchases from out-of-state vendors that exceed $2,000 at the general municipal election to be held in the city on April 7th, 2020.
Yes, this is just asking you all to vote to put the use tax back on the April ballot this coming year, or this year. I brought this up during the budget meeting, and this will be, I guess, the 4th time we've asked the citizens to vote for this. We will campaign and do it differently this time, but I think you all know this is very important to the city. So.
Sir, excuse me, hold on. You need to fill out a form, and then I'll allow you to speak. There's a form over in the corner. Okay. Oh, okay, I got one. Or you wanting to speak on the tax?
It's about something else, because it was stating, if anybody in the audience has something input about what we said, I did, but I didn't know we had to fill out one of these forms. I didn't know.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay. I
Okay.
didn't know, so I was asking, I said, I wanted to say that because I missed the point to me, see anybody in the audience has something to say. But thank you.
Okay,
I get this.
okay. Mr. Christman.
Thank you again, members of the council. Jim Christman, 464 North Main. I would assume that this proposal cost some money to get it on the ballot. And it appears to me that that would be a waste of taxpayer dollars if it's going down to defeat again. Just a few months ago, you remember, it was narrowly defeated, and then it was brought back shortly after the vote to purchase the property out west and was soundly defeated. I believe that careful analysis here will show that the reason that it was defeated was because that was an unpopular decision. And I believe if you don't rescind that, that unpopular decision will cause the defeat again. Don't be a three-time or four-time loser on this proposition. It's something that should happen, but it's something that you all need to take real serious look at and see why it is being defeated. This is not a threat. This is the way one person feels, and it's the logic that I'm using as to whether or not I can support this. This needs vigorous discussion in council, and I hope you will do that. And I do hope that you make the right choices and this becomes law. Thank you.
As far as the cost of putting it on the ballot, I really don't know if there's any extra cost. If it is, it's very, very, very minimal because we have an at-large election in April anyway. So, for this coming April, the election cost really doesn't change to put this on the ballot.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with Mr. Christman that a decision that we made that was unpopular by some had an effect on that election. However, I think it's such poor judgment when we mix apples and oranges, because regardless of whether you support, a citizen supports or disagrees with the apple that we're talking about, when we get ready to talk about the orange ought to stand by its own. And so it's kind of a situation where the community, we shoot ourselves in the foot when we do that. And we all know that it does make a difference. It's going to make a difference in the future of our city. And I just, it's beyond my comprehension that because this decision somebody's disagreed with, and that is their right. But yet they hold a grudge there against something when some of them have said, you know what, it was the right thing and we do need it. So if the citizens feel like, and if Mr. Christman feels like, he's hurting us, well, I'm here to tell you, you're not hurting me. You're hurting the town. And you're hurting the city. And it's sad if we're going to do business that way. We need to separate apples and oranges. I think you all know me well enough, and I appreciate this entire council, because we have at times certainly had differences of opinion. But this council has always been professional enough that once we moved from item A, we were all fresh at item B. We didn't hold a grudge on how this one went to determine how we're going to vote on this one. And I've really appreciated the professionalism of this council that we've all been able to do that and move on to the next item. And I hope we don't fall into that again as a city. We approach this election looking at it alone. Is it right? Is it good? Will it help the city?
Any further comment from the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment. I think the fact that we're putting this on the ballot or plan on putting this on the ballot for the third, fourth time, it illustrates the dilemma that not only our cities, but a lot of cities are in all over. I mean, I think it's pretty apparent that the revenue bases are shrinking. Brick and mortar sales, if they're not being reduced, they're at least somewhat stagnant at times, and you've got to have the revenue in order to pay salaries, to pay benefits, or to give benefits, and the issue itself is it's legitimate. I mean, if we don't have a revenue stream, there's things that we can't do. So that's my thoughts on it. I think it's legitimate, and it's an individual decision with the city, the taxpayers, and the citizens. But you can only do so much if you have only so much revenue coming in.
That's so true.
I just really hope that the citizens will see how important this is. Mr. Mastingham, city manager's talked about that in our budget and used some figures. Those have escaped me, Mr. Mastingham, at this time, but I know there were considerable dollars
Yes.
without this being passed.
Yes, around 200, and, well, the budget was $280-something thousand deficit, and the estimates on the use tax is around $300,000 to $350,000. I did read an article last week, and they were talking about brick and mortar sales and Christmas sales, and in 2019, across the country, there were 7,500 retail stores closed. Stores like JCPenney's, some retail stores, I think Kohl's, they said they would be closing more this coming year, and they would also be downsizing a lot of their stores, and they attributed it all to online sales. So, I mean, the world's changing, and we have to have revenue from somewhere.
If we don't change with it, our city, the services that the city provide is going to change too, unfortunately.
Yes.
And we don't want that. I don't think anybody as citizens wants that. I want enough policemen that when we call, they can come to my house and
I do
fire a
too.
truck and roll if it needs to. And I can get a pothole fixed if I need it fixed.
And
Mr.
we've-
Manager, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
Is that amount, that's an initial potential revenue amount is $300,000 to $350,000. Well, that'll increase potentially.
As internet sales increase, yes, that would increase. We've eliminated, I think, 8 positions in the last 5 years in various departments, street department, police department, cemetery department, some others, even a couple at City Hall. So we're really at minimal staffing, especially in the fire department. I mean, a lot of times we have, with vacation, because we have a lot of firefighters that have been there a lot of years, they have a lot of vacation time built up. Vacation, an injury, a sick leave. A lot of the time, we only have two firefighters at a station. And that's not good. I mean,
Did you have a comment, Lisa?
So do we need to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, a lot of times,
Come to where we can, come to the mic, or we can all hear you.
by nature of human beings, people are just stuff that they don't understand, is the bottom line. When I heard about the fact of the internet, how people shop on the internet, and it's taken away from the brick and mortar type situation, then there was a created an understanding. You guys need somebody from you all that will inform the public of why you're losing money and why they need to make the sacrifice for the city. I just tend to think that'll solve a lot of your problem, and by you being so close, that will help you tip the scales. Boy, you just need somebody just to go to churches, go to community groups, go wherever people at, and just talk to people. And if people understand, people can do better. But when people don't understand, they're gonna, anytime you ask people to spend money, they don't want to spend money. But if this is a good cause and they may just make a sacrifice, you just need to inform the public. And if you inform the public, you'll get it done.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to move this to the January 21st session?
I make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, the city council will discuss a recommendation from the city staff for brokerage services for health, dental, and optical insurance. Mr. Massingham.
Yes, several months ago, we sent out a RFQ, a request for qualifications for proposals from brokers for health insurance, dental, and optical. Set up a committee of myself and our human resource director, Tim Eddington, our utility manager, Bill Bach, and our accountant and accounting manager, Terry Leslie at Utilities. We interviewed, I think it was 5 companies. Actually, all 5 companies were very good. I mean, we've done business with 2 of them that I know of. The committee, the majority of the committee selected American Fidelity, which is, it's not a local company. It's actually located out in Oklahoma. They have a representative in St. Louis, and they have a representative in Cabot, Arkansas. We had narrowed it down to two companies, American Fidelity and Sonus, which Sonus is out of St. Louis, but they also have a local person here. Sonus just got the county's insurance this year, and I may be mistaken, but I think they may have the college's insurance. Like I said, they do have a local person. And as I said, the majority chose the American Fidelity, and I know there's some concern about it not being a local company, and I completely understand that. But I'll be happy to answer any questions I can.
So we sent out a request, and these companies responded?
Yes, sir.
As well as some local companies as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We didn't really go seek them out as such?
No.
Okay. Just good clarification for us there. I would like for us to try to keep this in town. I believe we have some folks in town that are capable of doing it, and you know, I hate to see us take tax dollars and send it out of town. And I know we've done that in times for whatever reasons those decisions have been made. But I really don't want, personally, would prefer that we try to find someone in town that could serve us. Another thing, I think, from the service standpoint, apparently the one company doesn't have anybody local at all.
No, they don't.
And the other one, you said a person, and I don't know and don't need to know at this point, but you know, someone that has something of a staff that could help process, someone that our employees could go to, make a call, local call, and if need be, go sit across from them in a chair and work things out. I would appeal that we try to move in that direction.
Mr. Qualls, did you have a comment?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I wanted to take this opportunity to discuss the
I need your address, sir.
excuse me,
Your address.
3663 McLean.
Thank you.
I wanted to take this opportunity to discuss, you know, one of the things we did not bid. We are the incumbent agent on this plan at this time, and we chose not to bid due to the fact that we had an enforced contract, and we felt that the RFP as it was structured was not in the city's best interest. So we tried to work through that, and that did not work out very well. And so as of recently, we've had some discrepancies about some payroll deductions. And I wanted to address this publicly because it's become a very serious issue. And there's going to probably be some fallout from it, and I wanted to take this time to put this out in the public. First and foremost, I want to talk a little bit about the performance that my company has had with this health plan. In 2015, before we took the health plan over, the plan spent $2.27 million, $2.277587. And everything I tell you tonight is verifiable, and I can put proof behind every bit of it. So just bear that in mind, and anytime that you want documentation, I'm more than glad to give it to you. In 2016, a decision was made to go away from Anthem Blue Cross to a third-party administrator based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And that year, the expenditures were $3,743,666.73. Now, these are medical and pharmacy claims only and administration costs, and they are offset by reinsurance reimbursements. In 2017, we took this account back over, late 2016, early 2017, with the intent of turning it around and getting it away from where it was, and we knew that was going to be a process and take some time. But we also knew that the plan was continuing to go into the red, so we had to make some decisions and really work hard to take care of this. So after the expenditures in 2017 of $3.619 to $622.76, in 2018 the plan spent $2.9 million, $30,150.18, a significant decrease. In 2019, we have spent $2.898,241.13. That's a 22.5% decrease from 2017. So we've done a pretty good job with turning the expenses around. We have also had what I would call non-typical savings, things that you would not normally see from a normal insurance agency or broker that we have identified and saved. I recently gave you guys a report that over the years, I've saved over $1,072,282.85. That number is the one that I can document every penny beyond the shadow of a doubt. There's more out there, but we could say that maybe it was coincidental or it was due to something else, but that's a hard number. Now, recently, a city personnel commented on a Facebook post that number was incorrect, publicly. My children were on that post. It made me look like a liar, and I have had a very, very, very hard time taking action about it. I went to City Manager Massingham at the time and said, something needs to be done about this. To date, nothing's been done. And that same employee has caused me further issues, which I'm going to get into in a minute. No action's taken. This has continued to be damaging. It is not a good situation, and I'm not going to, it's not going to go away. So we need to know that. But recently, during this open enrollment period,
What does not going away mean?
there's going to have to be some sort of resolution on this. It's publicly out there. It was asked to be removed. It was not removed. I've retained legal counsel over it. So probably it's going to end up in some sort of a litigation type situation, unfortunately.
Really?
Probably so. Because there's been damages issued there's been actual damages as of now.
You understand we do not control employees' Facebook.
I understand that.
I have
But
nothing more to say.
administration reprimanded other employees over their Facebook post at the same time.
Yeah, and we got called on it too. So, people put stuff on Facebook about me all the time.
I
don't cry
understand.
about it, so.
Me too, I get a little noise. Sorry, you can't take the heat.
Oh, please take the heat. But,
Apparently not, you whine.
well, it's against the law. So, defamation is against the law, Ron. Hate to tell you that, especially when it's not true.
Boy, I got a lawsuit coming too then.
Good. I'll give you the name of a good attorney.
Okay,
So,
gentlemen, we're
anyway,
here for business.
payroll deductions. Recently been brought to my attention that the payroll deductions that we were giving to the employees, there were some differences. And so we were kind of like, well, how does this happen? We try and figure out where this came from. Obviously, we don't want employees getting the wrong information, the wrong rates, the wrong premiums. This could result in an error, an omissions claim for us. It also could have implications for the city for giving out and keeping wrong information on the confirmation statements. So as we investigated this, I've went back to try to piece together how this happened. And what looks to have happened is that someone in administration used a different set of numbers and has given those out and not given them to us, even though we have given administration, that personnel, and HR the same numbers 4 to 6 times during this plan year. And I've even got email documentation from Mr. Massingham and myself where that we had agreed on what we were going to use. I do believe that this was an error, not intentionally. I think that it was a misunderstanding in terminology, meaning that when you have a self-funded plan, a lot of people will refer to premiums as rates, and we're talking about deductions and rates and different things. And we had provided a set of deductions that was very similar to the ones that are being used now, except our deductions were based upon Anthem's underwritten composite number, which is coming from the underwriter, and Anthem's factors to calculate those 4-tier deductions and rates that we're using. So we're using Anthem's numbers, and when you do that, you want to always zero back to your liability. Well, the numbers that the city used in 2019 would cause a $20,000 shortfall. And I know that this is not, everybody's going to argue about this, but it's pretty easy if everybody would just sit down and look at it. Also, in the number of emails that I've got, I've got Mr. Massingham saying, just go ahead and use the 2018 deductions, which is what we did. We followed his instructions. However, I had gotten an email and I just found this over the weekend, I'd gotten an email from the finance person sending me a different set of numbers, not copying Mr. Massingham. He was not on the email. It just said, Mark has decided to use these numbers. And so we need to go with that. And so I responded in a very cordial response. I think we need to discuss this and talk about the implications of changing these numbers. This was on December the 20th, after we'd already had open enrollment meetings of that year. So it was, way behind, we were way behind the 8 ball. So Mr. Massingham again came back and said, use the 2018 deductions, which I did, but there's a slight variance in what's being used at the city and what we've been putting out to these employees, which again would not really be a big deal had we been told about it because we'd have changed it. I mean, the city is ultimately who sets those numbers, and we would follow their lead. It's their decision how they set those numbers and those deductions. But if we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it. But when our forms are being sent in to the city and they are being scratched out and the numbers are being changed, it puts us in a bad spot. Again, I don't think there's anything improper going on there. I just think it's somebody trying to get something done their way. It's we're talking about, I think, Mark, when you and I talked about this, or Mr. Massingham, we talked about this. We're talking about like a $10,000 difference for the year, I think, for that 1 year.
You're talking about the buy-up, I'm assuming.
Well, actually, it all kind of falls into the base, too. It's confusing how it works, but there's a $10,000 difference basically overall. But the reality is you can set those numbers at whatever you want to. If you have a deficit or shortfall, like and it's $10,000 or $20,000 from your maximum liability, the city is going to be liable for it. So setting those maximum rates or the rates that you use, one way or the other, you're going to be liable for that money. So I always just back to the maximum. But again, I really believe it was due to terminology and miscommunication. But we sent those, and I sent another set of that same set of deductions to you in, I think, March or April. So they were sent multiple times, and again, nobody said anything to us. And so we were blindsided by that. And again, that's kind of put a black eye on me because now I've got people coming to me, and I'll quote verbatim from a text message that it was actually to Susan Hale that works for me. It was from a retiree spouse, and she said, "We have just received the good news that the premiums we were quoted were wrong. We know this is not your fault, but the fault of your boss." Now, had I known y'all were using different numbers, it would have been real easy to correct that, but I didn't know. And multiple times we sent those for approval. So that's kind of another issue for us. We've been damaged out there on this because through no fault of our own. So, again, and I've tried to work to demonstrate where that came from. I've got all the emails pulled up. I've done the research. I've done the legwork.
So you have 1 minute to finish up.
Well, we've got a couple of things to cover. We'll move on from the deductions. Also, there's been some unlabeled transfers in and out of the one of the accounts for the city's health plan. And some of those I never really looked at the deposits because all the deposits don't go to that account, which I've objected to that a little bit over the years. It would be easier to account if they all went to the same place. But I brought up a large amount to Mr. Massingham previously in a meeting off-site, and he, was going to check into that. Since then, I've found another $100,000 discrepancy, another $40,000, another $43,000, and a $4,500. And I also found $99,000 in income that came in that is not in the revenue and expense reports. So I would encourage you to work on looking at this. It could have an effect on what was previously your deficit. So, if you got something to say, I'm just...
Yeah, part of it is, and we've talked about this before over the last 3 years, is there's a big difference between governmental accounting and normal accounting, and
Right, but when you have $99,000 that comes in and it doesn't show...
it's all accounted for. The auditors have been through it.
It's
just
not accounted for, Mark.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
I
is.
promise you it's not.
No, it is.
Well, prove it to me.
I will.
Okay. I mean, that's all I'm asking is just...
And as far as you saying you didn't answer the RFQ, that was almost the exact same RFQ that we sent out when you came to bid work for us. So
Yeah, but it was the timing issue.
everybody else had time.
Well, it was the timing issue. I wanted to get the open enrollment done and take care of your employees, which I did.
Yes, you did.
So
Did a good job.
that was my intent. And,
Okay, gentlemen, I need to move on.
like I said, I'll be looking for the documentation.
I have one comment, though.
Yes, sir.
Seems like the speaker at this point wants to talk like nothing is his fault,
No.
and that, I'm speaking now, sir. I waited till you finished. I said it seems, so there's room for argument. Seems to me like the speaker wants to talk like nothing is his fault, and all it is a bunch of mistakes on the city side. The city, all of these funds are audited,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Massingham. Fact is, this speaker has not returned phone calls to the city manager on a timely basis when you have put them in. Is that correct?
No, I wouldn't say that. He's
Okay, all right, I'll take that back. Is it fair to say that emails he has made to city employees has either talked down to those city employees or has been harsh and caused them to actually cry?
Yes, I've had 2 female employees that work for me.
I've got some of those emails that are here if you'd like to read them.
Oh, we
And
don't
I-
need to hear them. I'm just telling you the result of the way you communicate with people. sir.
I think you'd be
And
shocked.
sir,
I think you'd be shocked.
you have, what's the letter that he received?
Termination letter.
Termination letter. You have a termination letter. We don't need to hear from
And
you.
yes, I will admit that
Oh,
I
yeah,
have
you do.
sent, I have
Still
sent
being
Mr.
non-digital.
Qualls some emails too, so.
Yeah, I mean, this goes 2 ways here, Mr. Black. There's a lot to be said.
But I don't appreciate my employees coming in and crying when, actually, one of those employees from 2 years ago helped Mr. Qualls get the account, so.
Well, I mean, like I said, I've got plenty of emails where I was very cordial to the employees.
Yes, you do.
You know, and I've got some pretty nasty emails from them, as well as the defamation issue going on. So, we can debate that later, but we've done everything we can, and the city has done everything. We've worked good together when we can communicate. But when no one will communicate, or when we can't get information for months at a time, that becomes a problem. Just like right now, we're asking for some information, simple information. Can't
Is
get
this
it.
time elapsed?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, this has kind of turned into a little personal fight, and we need not
I
have that
assure you it's
tonight.
not personal with me, sir. It's just factual, or to my understanding.
That will remain to be seen.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your time. Any further comment from the council?
Mr. Manager, what is your recommendation on this item B as far as the,
What I'd like to do is, I've got all the proposals. I can send you the proposals from each of the companies, and, we're voting on this on the 21st. Or actually, if you want more time to go through them, I guess we could vote on it the first meeting in February, so. The termination letter, there's a 90-day clause, so That actually runs out in March sometime with the present broker.
Will it be too late to put that on the February 3rd agenda?
I would suggest go ahead and pass it on to the January 21st voting session. Let me get you the proposals, and if any of you have any questions, just please come by and see me. And if you feel like that night that you're not ready to vote on it, you can table it and vote on it at the next meeting. So,
Okay, sounds good. Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item C, the City Council will discuss a resolution of official intent of the City Council of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri for the issuance of the city's taxable industrial revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $28,900,000 to finance a project for the benefit of Briggs & Stratton Corporation and authorizing certain actions relating thereto. Mr. Massingham.
First, let me give you kind of a brief history of how this started. I think it was last February. Steve Halter from the Chamber, Bill Bach from Utilities, I think Spire Gas was also in the room, officials from Missouri Economic Development out of Jeff City, and myself. We all met with Briggs & Stratton. We all had to sign confidentiality agreements. We couldn't talk about what happened in the meeting. Basically, Briggs & Stratton was looking at closing down one of their plants, either the Poplar Bluff plant or the Murray, Kentucky plant, and moving. If they closed down Poplar Bluff, they'd move all the jobs to Murray. If they closed down Murray, they would move all the jobs to Poplar Bluff. Right now, Briggs & Stratton employs 500 plus jobs here in Poplar Bluff. That would have been just a devastating blow to Poplar Bluff and the surrounding community. So we had to come up with some incentives to keep them in Poplar Bluff. The gas company made some incentives, utilities made some incentives, and one of those was the item we're talking about tonight. It's I think it's called Series 100 bonds through the state of Missouri. And basically what ended up happening was, as you all know, Briggs & Stratton unfortunately did have to close the plant, the one in Murray, which nobody likes to see that happen, but we sure didn't want to lose the Poplar Bluff plant. So instead of losing 500 jobs, we kept those 500 jobs and are going to gain anywhere from 350 to 400 jobs. So that's great news for Poplar Bluff. But we have a representative here from Armstrong and Teasdale who's working with Briggs & Stratton on the bonds, Angela Oldham. Angela, if you could kind of come up and explain how this works and what we're doing here and answer any questions somebody might have.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Again, my name is Angela Oldham. I'm from Armstrong, Teasdale in St. Louis, and thank you for having me tonight. So basically, we would be representing the city. And for doing any kind of resolution like this, we kind of need a formal action from the board so we can meet various statutory requirements. This is a Chapter 100 bond, and it's authorized under the state statute, specifically Chapter 100. And to do so, there's different notice requirements we have to meet. And so one of them is sending out a notice I've been working with Nevada on, which would be notifying all the taxing districts of the proposed change to the tax base. So that's what we're asking for tonight, is that the council take formal action to authorize the sending of those notices, and then I will be coming back 2 more times, the January 21st meeting and the February 3rd meeting. So at that time, I'd actually presenting to the council actual formal documents that would allow the issuance of these Chapter 100 bonds to happen. As you may already know, Briggs & Stratton already receives Chapter 100 benefits here, and this would just be extending some of those benefits and then offering some additional benefits for their personal property, which was one of the incentives they were offered in order to stay here in Poplar Bluff. So that's a very kind of extending on the city manager's already excellent explanation of what's happening, but I'm happy to answer more technical questions or any just general questions as well. And I've been working with Briggs & Stratton just on the documents to date so far.
And the 28 million, is that basically new equipment they're bringing in to the factory? And
Right, so that deals with the equipment they are bringing from their Kentucky plant to the state of Missouri. And it's discounted for useful life and things of that nature if you're getting into more of the tax kind of side of it.
Any questions from the council? I think it's a wonderful thing that we're getting more jobs here in Poplar Bluff. I'm really glad it's all happening, and we said somewhere 900 plus jobs total. So I mean, that really sounds good for Poplar Bluff.
And we've done the Chapter 100 bonds for Briggs before, and I think we may have actually done it for Gates or somebody down there years ago. So it's.
But in this case, my understanding would be that actually Briggs is the one that pays the bonds off.
Yes. Yes.
We're just kind of a facilitator to some extent. Would that be?
Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so how it works is by the city, this is very, I can do it much more in depth if you'd like, but basically the city.
Basic.
Yeah, so the bonds were first issued in 2011. And so at that time, the property's technically deeded to the city. And so that way you can take tax relief because you don't have to pay the full value of your taxes. So based off the 2011 deal, they received 90% tax abatement on their real property. So here it's a little complicated because we've got to extend these benefits. So there'll be a couple deeds back and forth, but basically, so there will be, the city will technically have the property via special warranty deed, which is a common real estate conveyance item. And they just have an agreement that allows them where they pay money back to the city just at a different rate. So the city is not actually paying for stuff. In fact, like the legal fees to cover my counsel will actually be paid by Briggs & Stratton. They won't be paid by the city, even though the city will employ my firm if that's the action you take. So they cover all the costs. It's just a way for them to kind of get some benefits to stay within the state of Missouri versus leaving for Kentucky.
Certainly sounds like a good thing for us to be able just to participate in to help, and really doesn't cost us there's not a cost to us as such.
Right.
We do help facilitate it.
Yeah, kind of keep the status quo as it currently is, not to go on a limb, but it's not really going to change anything as it is currently.
And, attracting a new industry, keeping one here, although this is kind of a regional thing with Murray, Kentucky, but it's worldwide now. I mean, we compete with other places all over the world to try to get industry here. So we've had a very good year for 2019.
Wonderful.
Make a motion to pass it to tonight's voting session. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you on January 21st. And any questions in the interim, always feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Item 9, action required items. Item AA, bill number 8200. The city council will take action on a request to revise board composition for the Residential Housing Advisory Board.
Motion for first reading of Bill 8200.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri Code of City Ordinances, ordinance number 7855, relating to the composition of the Residential Housing Advisory Board.
Motion for second reading of bill number 8200.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Clerk Young.
An ordinance amending the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri Code of City Ordinances, ordinance number 7855, relating to the composition of the Residential Housing Advisory Board.
Motion for adoption of Bill 8200.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, Clerk Young.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton.
Yes.
Councilman Cornman.
Yes.
Councilman Black.
Yes.
Councilwoman Parson.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tim Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Bill number 8200 is adopted. Item BB, bill number 8201. The City Council will take action on a request to rezone property located at 462 North Main Street from RD1 residential duplex to O1 office professional to operate an attorney's office. The applicant is Theodore E. Lashewski Law Firm.
Motion for first reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Clerk Young.
An ordinance rezoning properties located at 462 North Main Street in Poplar Bluff, Missouri.
Motion for second reading of Bill 8201.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Clerk Young.
An ordinance rezoning properties located at 462 North Main Street in Poplar Bluff, Missouri.
Motion for adoption.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Horton.
Yes.
Councilman Cornman.
Yes.
Councilman Black.
Yes.
Councilwoman Parson.
Yes.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tim Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Carries.
Bill number 8201 is adopted. Item CC, resolution number 1914. The City Council will take action on a resolution for the issuance of the city's taxable industrial revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $28,900,000 to finance a project for the benefit of Briggs & Stratton Corporation and authorizing certain actions relating thereto.
Motion for reading of Resolution 1914.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Clerk Young.
Resolution of official intent of the City Council of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri for the issuance of the city's taxable industrial revenue bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $28,900,000 to finance a project for the benefit of Briggs & Stratton Corporation and authorizing certain actions relating thereto.
Motion for adoption.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Cornman.
Yes.
Councilman Black.
Yes.
Councilwoman Parson.
Yes.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tim Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes. Resolution number 1914 is adopted. And that concludes action required items. Item DD. The City Council of the City of Poplar Bluff will meet in a closed meeting in which they will discuss such matters which are exempted under the Open Meetings Law in Section 610.21.1, .2, .3, .9, .11, .12, .13, and .14 revised statute of Missouri following the city manager's report.
Make a motion, move into closed session following city manager's report.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Parson.
Here. Yes.
Councilman DeGaris.
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton.
Yes.
Councilman Cornman.
Yes.
Councilman Black.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tim Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Massingham.
The only thing is, I mentioned to y'all, I don't know, a meeting or two ago about having our city attorney do a presentation on annexation laws, and he's been on vacation, so as soon as he gets back next week, we'll talk about that and either try to have something at the next meeting or the first meeting in February. It's very complicated laws, and it needs to be explained by somebody like city attorney, so. Anyway, that's all I have. It's last 2 weeks with the holidays has been kind of slow and dead, so.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move. Second.
Okay. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute recess.